Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell. William was driving home to his country mansion after a hard day's work. He was quite pleased with himself, humming a simple tune to himself and enjoying life. Everything was going more than well. Important negotiations had gone as well as possible, and soon the merger of two huge corporations into one was to take place, which promised additional profit. Outside the window was a cold winter. A heavy snowstorm began. Everything around was blizzarding. Beautiful firs were covered with snow. Everything around was white, and not a single sight in sight. At least the powerful SUV was able to cope with the ice and snow drifts, and the interior was warm and pleasant. William was a successful businessman and had a wife, Kathy, whom he loved deeply and sincerely. They had met while still students. William was studying economics and Kathy was studying design. The guy fell in love with her immediately. A slender, blue-eyed blonde with a doll's pretty face that resembled a Barbie doll. Unlike William, who was from a wealthy family, Kathy was brought up by her aunt. Her own parents were gone too soon. Therefore, the girl was quite modest, well-mannered, and not spoiled. A passionate romance spun between them. Then they were married. They moved into a country mansion. Kathy dreamed of a career as a designer. She liked to do complex projects. She had already taken in a reputable company in the capital for training. Ahead were very bright prospects. But soon her wife unexpectedly became pregnant. She was expecting triplets. What a pleasant surprise, from which the man could not come away until now. William was overjoyed at the news, but Kathy was stunned. She had already imagined herself a famous designer, and now this. Her husband was very worried about her health and well-being. Pregnancy was difficult. The doctor said that she had to have a cesarean section. Kathy's mood was also tearful now. She was not ready to become a mother of 3 kids at once so early and to forget about her career. So the husband, worried, dialed the number of his beloved. "Hello, my little sunshine. How are you? How's your health? I'm on my way home. I'll be there soon. Can I buy you some goodies? What does my girl want?" Kathy answered irritably. "My strength is gone. I can't sleep or walk properly. My legs are swollen. The babies are pushing all day long. I can't wait to give birth. I feel like a clumsy cow. I can't see my legs because of my huge belly. Come quickly, I'm waiting for you. All right, my love, I'm close. I love you." William hung up the phone when he suddenly noticed a small figure on the side of the road, more like a small snowdrift. He thought, "Does it look like a person? Or was it just me? I don't understand. Could it be that someone came out of the house in this snowstorm?" The man slowed down mechanically and decided to check his guess. Shivering from the strong wind, he got out of the warm car and looked around. Indeed, an old woman, crippled by cold, was shifting from foot to foot on the curb and selling homemade pickles. When she saw the respectable businesswoman, she started babbling. "Young man, at least buy a couple of jars of pickles. Very tasty, crispy. I closed them myself. You won't regret it. I really need the money. I'm freezing. I can't trade in this weather. And I can't take them home. I'm exhausted." William suddenly felt so sorry for that grandmother, right to the point of tears. That's life. Someone counts millions, and someone has to sell cucumbers in a snowstorm. Apparently, money is tight. He silently put her cans in the trunk, all of them, in bulk, and nodded at her. "Sit down. I'll give you a ride. Otherwise, you'll freeze to death here." They found a good time to trade. It's about to get snowed in all around us. Can't see a thing. The old woman was so cold that she didn't argue or rebel. She just wanted to warm up a little. She quickly climbed into the warm and cozy cabin and sighed blissfully. "Thank you, good man. You kept me warm. My name is Maria. I live near here, in a house on the outskirts. So will you take some pickles? There's also sauerkraut and homemade ejica." William grinned and handed her the money without counting it. "I'll take it. Is that enough?" "Listen, Maria, I have a proposition for you. Would you like to work for me as a cook? I live in a mansion in the country. My wife's 9 months pregnant with triplets. It's hard for her, poor thing, to do everything. And I'm never home. You're a good cook. You know how to cook. I won't hurt you with money. How about it?" The old lady was very happy. "I'd love to. Why not help? I'm a good cook. You'll be pleased. I'll make a soup so good it'll be delicious. And I really need the money right now. My son's in trouble. I have to help him out. Who will help him if not his mother?" They arrived home. Kathy, flopping over like a duck, joyfully threw herself into her husband's arms. Then she noticed the old woman and asked in surprise, "Honey, do we have company?" "Who is it?" William introduced Granny. "Let me introduce you, honey. This is Maria. She's going to be our cook for a while. She'll help you with everything. I can see how hard it is for you with that belly. I'm not always around. You get plenty of rest. It'll be easier." Kathy grimaced. She didn't like the old woman for some reason. She looked so much like the witch in the fairy tale, so she answered irritably, "I don't think that's a good idea. You know how I don't like strangers in the house. The woman herself is in her old age. How will she manage? You could have found someone younger." She snorted and left, stroking her huge belly, to her room, displeased with her husband's decision. The old woman hesitated on the threshold, not knowing what to do now, whether to leave or stay. William cheered her up. "Don't be offended by Kathy. She's already pregnant. She's always on edge. Just do your job. It's on. It'll make me feel better. Take a seat in the back room. Meet the maid, Cindy, and the chauffeur, John. They're good, simple people, also of an age. You'll get along. For some reason, I don't trust those young trampy girls the agency sends as maids or housekeepers. They're just trying to pick their own pockets. I always choose people who are reliable and trustworthy. John, for example, worked in the police all his life. It is clear that such a person would not think of anything bad and would not do his work with his hands down. If you could make a quick dinner, I appreciate it. I don't want to stand at the stove. And Kathy's probably been eating pizza alone." The old woman washed her hands, put on her apron, and went to work. In about 40 minutes, she called the family for dinner. Aromatic potatoes with meat, delicious cheesecakes, and berry compote were smoldering on the table. She opened her signature spicy pickles to try. William ate the food in front of his mouth, and Kathy enjoyed the cucumbers. They were exactly what she had wanted throughout her pregnancy. Everyone was happy, and Maria stayed to work in the family, although the old woman ran all her errands to the best of her ability, and everything went quickly in her capable hands. Kathy did not like her. She looked at the old woman, a little strange, and she pressed her lips together. But she did not want to contradict her husband. It was the custom in their family that his decisions were not challenged. The woman hoped that after the birth of this unpleasant person would be out of the house. One day there was an incident like this. The chauffeur, John, had a bad pain in his back. The man was just fiddling under the hood when a hellish, unbearable pain pierced his entire body. He literally could not straighten up. Barely making it home, he went in to take the day off, since it was unthinkable to work and drive. It was early morning. The family was having breakfast. William was about to drive to the negotiations when the chauffeur apologized and informed him of the problem. The businessman was upset, for Kathy was just due to go today for her last scheduled ultrasound before the birth, and he himself could not miss an important meeting. There will be the whole board of directors, and then there was the force majeure. Maria took off her apron, wiped her hands, walked over to him, and told him to lift his shirt. He was quite surprised, but he complied. Grandma ran her hands down his waist and whispered something under his nose. Then she asked, "Warm, don't you feel it?" "Feeling better. It's going to get better." The chauffeur cautiously straightened up. He was dumbfounded, but there was no pain. It had literally evaporated somewhere. The man thanked the cook. It really doesn't hurt. Thank you, Maria. How did you do that? Unbelievable. 10 minutes ago, I couldn't straighten up. It hurt so much. You're a miracle worker. The old woman only waved her hand. Let's face it, what kind of witch is there? I'm a local healer. I know about herbs. I can heal people with my hands. I don't know where I got it from. You can buy at the pharmacy an ointment on cedar cones. Very effective. I myself only use it and try not to get a cold. William and Kathy just opened their mouths at the sight. But the old woman quickly left for the kitchen and went about her usual business as usual, making it clear that she didn't want to continue the subject. Kathy whispered to her husband, "And I told you she was a witch. She's a witch, that's what she does. I don't like her." William only smiled. "Why are you getting so mad at her? She's a nice old lady. She helped a man. Didn't make it worse, did she? So what can you blame her for? Don't get yourself worked up. Go to the doctor and get ready." He got up from the table and shouted to Grandma, "Maria, thank you for breakfast. The omelette is wonderful, above all praise. Can I ask you to make something dietary for Kathy for dinner? At your discretion, and healthy." The month flew by quickly. Kathy was due to go to the hospital any day now to prepare for an elective operation. Everything had already been arranged. William had rented a private room for a fee, and an excellent obstetrician and gynecologist had been arranged. The man was very anxious for everything to go perfectly. William did not even think anything bad could happen to his beloved woman or babies, so he prepared himself thoroughly. But life has made adjustments to the plans of the businessman. Kathy, too, packed everything in the maternity ward and was on standby. The next morning, she was to be admitted to the hospital. Suddenly, in the middle of the night, a woman's wild screams startled everyone. Kathy was in early labor, and her water broke. A frightened William immediately called an ambulance, even though he knew the weather and the roads were making it difficult to get there. He was also afraid he would not make it to the hospital on his own. The woman was simply insane. She was screaming and rolling around on the bed. She was pale. Sweat was rolling down her forehead and back, and her nightgown was all wet. The man was in a wild panic and ran to Maria. He just didn't know who else to turn to. The old woman was already awake and dressed. She listened to her master and immediately rushed to their bedroom. She looked at the screaming, half-crazed Kathy and said sternly, "You're not going to make it. The labor is in full swing. All right, prepare warm boiled water, a bucket, a basin, clean sheets, alcohol. I'll help in any way I can, but it won't be easy. Triplets, after all. Bring it all here and go away. You're not much help anyway. You're about to faint yourself." Kathy, seeing the unpleasant cook, squealed even louder. "Don't come near me. I'll wait for an ambulance. I don't trust you. You'll ruin my children. Oh, Mommy, it hurts so bad. Oh. And the woman in labor began to scream and roll around on the bed again, curled up from the savage, penetrating pain all over her body. Grandma did not react at all to her angry words, sat down next to her, took her by the hand, and began to whisper some prayers, then asked, "How is the pain less? Is it supposed to get better?" Kathy did come to her senses a little, and the pain was gone for a while. She looked differently at the strange grandmother. Even if she was a witch, even if she was unpleasant, as long as she helped. Maria quietly and calmly, as if nothing had happened, continued, "You, little girl, don't shop for nothing. Don't waste your strength. You'll need them soon. Women have given birth in all ages. You're not the first, nor the last. We'll manage together, and then the ambulance will come. The doctors will help. When a new contraction starts, hold my hand tight, and I'll help you. God willing, you'll be all right. Well, here we go. Come on, like we agreed. Breathe. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. And now come on. Push. Come on. Push. My good man. Help your little ones. It's not easy for them, either. And 1, and 2. Okay, I can see the baby's head now. William was drinking cognac straight from his throat, not knowing how else to calm his panic, and only frightened he listened to his wife screaming sometimes, and then suddenly he heard the cry of a baby. He had not misheard it. The baby was crying. Then another and another. Just then, the ambulance beeped outside the gate, and the frightened man breathed a sigh of relief and ran to open the door. When the paramedics entered the couple's bedroom, they were stunned. The woman in labor was breathing heavily and coming to, and on the bed were the 3 twins in diapers. The nurse was astonished when she read the woman's medical records. "This is fantastic. It's unbelievable. You're supposed to have an operation. An umbilical cord wrapping on a girl and a leg offer on one of the boys, plus a narrow pelvis. How on earth did you manage to give birth on your own?" And everything was so professionally done. All the babies are alive and well. And even though the labor was so fast, who delivered the baby? The embarrassed old lady answered quietly, "I did. I'm a healer, Maria. It was a difficult case, I don't deny it. I was afraid whether I could do it." The baby with the entanglement didn't scream right away. He was turning blue, and I was beating him on the ass and praying. I was so scared. Thank God, everything turned out okay. Kathy cried with happiness and thanked Maria. "Thank you, my dear. I didn't believe you. I didn't like you. Forgive me. You should open your own kiniku. If it weren't for you, I don't know what would have happened to me and the children. I can't even imagine. I'll name my daughter after you, Maria. Now I owe you one. I won't let you go anywhere. Work as long as you want. I thought I was going to die on this bed. This is the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life." Kathy was taken by ambulance with the children to the maternity hospital, and William was told to come and see her tomorrow. The man hugged Grandma earnestly and gibbered with tears in his eyes. "Thank you for everything. You're our savior. Anything you want me to do for you." I was totally desperate and panicked when Kathy went into labor. I don't know anything about these things. I feel sorry for my beloved. My heart is torn to pieces, but there's nothing I can do about it. I dread to think how it might have ended if you hadn't been there. God must have sent you there, on the road. You said your son was in some kind of trouble, and you need money to help him. Will you tell me what happened? I'll certainly help in any way I can." The old woman sighed heavily and began her story. "All right, so be it. My husband, Oliver, worked all his life as a gym teacher at the local school. We lived like everybody else. We didn't have kids for a long time, though. My husband took care of children in school. I helped people and cured them. But then finally, by some miracle, I got pregnant when we couldn't wait any longer. Raised my son, Max. He is a good and kind guy. He responds to other people's troubles. When my son was graduating from university, 3 years ago, my husband died unexpectedly. Just like that. He came home from work, sat down in an armchair, groaned, and died. My heart stopped. How I grieved, words can't describe. We had lived together like a needle and thread. Where he went, I went. During this difficult time, my son supported me a lot. If it were not for him, I would not have made it. Max got a good job, in a warehouse in a decent firm. The name is still such. Ah yes, potential. I was so happy for him. And then 2 months ago, he didn't come home. Never happened before. I was exhausted. Then he called me and said a few words. Mom, I'm in isolation. They set me up. I need 5 million rubles to get me out of here. Help me. I want you to know that I didn't steal anything and I'm not guilty of anything. That's all. I don't know anything else. What happened? How did it happen? I only know one thing. My son is not a thief. He would never take someone else's. I trust him. That's why I'm collecting money, little by little. I know it's a lot of money, but who else is going to help him? I was thinking of selling the house. I put an ad in, but so far there's not much of a bidder. It's a shabby house, and it's in a village. The time is running out. I can't wait till they put my son in jail for nothing." William shook his head. "Yeah, it's no fun. It really is a lot of money. Even for me. I can't take that kind of money out of circulation. But I'll try to figure it all out, find out everything, and help. Especially since I knew your husband well. Oliver was a golden man. And a teacher with a capital T. I had a terrible stutter when I was a child. My mother took me to all sorts of doctors and psychologists, but to no avail. I was skinny and had a lot of complexes. A lot of people hated me and mocked me, teased me with stuttering weakling. But your spouse managed to find a way to approach me. Oliver once saw me in the corridor being beaten by boys, and I covered my hands, cried, and didn't even try to fight back. Then he scolded the hooligans, dispersed them, and called me to his gym. The words he said to me at that time have stuck in my memory for the rest of my life. Remember, Will, that you were born a boy. That means you're a man. We men, too, can be painful and scary, but you should never let your guard down and show it. You always have to fight and go all the way. That's why you put up with it and don't try to fight back. You can't do that. You're going to grow up. You have to be able to protect your fiancé, your children, your family. You're not going to cover your hands and cry like you do now, are you? And to learn how to do that, you have to believe in yourself very strongly. Get up every morning thinking you can do anything. I agreed to stay for free after school and study with you. Believe me, you can become strong, brave, and you can take it out on your bullies. You just have to want to do it yourself. Understand? I believe in you, and you believe in me. He convinced me that I wasn't a wimp and talked me into trying martial arts classes. At first, I didn't believe anything would come of it. It was hard. Nothing worked. I was tired. My fists were bleeding. My muscles were hurting like hell. But Oliver was always there, supporting me, encouraging me. And you know what? Little by little, I got stronger and became a strong, confident guy. And the stuttering eventually went away by itself. Now, I wasn't afraid of my classmates. I knew that I could stand up for myself and my fiancé, if necessary. Just like that, without a single pill, Oliver cured me. I still haven't forgotten him, and I'm madly grateful to him. So don't worry, I'll take care of your son's problems and try to help you. A week later, Kathy and the 3 little ones were discharged home. Keeping track of Mike, Nancy, and Frank was impossible for her alone. As soon as one went silent, the other would start a song, and so on in a circle. While she was dressing all 3 of them in turn for a walk, she was already soaking wet. William hired a nanny to keep his wife from going crazy, and all together, amicably, took turns babysitting. After the birth, Kathy was very different. Now she looked at her sleeping babies with tenderness, no longer capricious or nervous. She tried to devote all her time and energy to the babies. The woman turned out to be an excellent and caring mother, and she forgot about her career as a designer for a while, completely immersed in motherhood. Maria also helped her hostess as much as she could and took over the kitchen and the whole house with her maid Cindy. When the children had tummy aches, she brewed dill water to make them feel better and gave them massages. She made them special lavender and eucalyptus bags and hung them in their cradles. That way the babies slept better and didn't get sick. Kathy now had complete confidence in the old woman and often ran to her for advice. And William, as promised, began to collect the necessary amount of money and at the same time began to find out what really happened in the firm Potential and why Max was behind bars. He decided to involve his old friend from school, Investigator Martin. He agreed to help Max and unofficially dig into this dark case. And this is what he found out a couple of weeks later. It turns out that the firm Potential emerged as if from nowhere. The owner was a visiting young major. Young and young. The owner's name was Marcus. He was a dark horse. Nothing was known in business circles about where and how he made his fortune at such a young age. Officially, the company was in the business of making and selling office equipment, and Max was in charge of the warehouse. So one day, a huge batch of goods disappeared from the warehouse, as if it had evaporated. The owner simply would not look into anything and pinned the entire amount on Max. After all, he is the person responsible for the material, so he was the one to be demanded. There is no evidence against the guy, but the case is handled by a corrupt investigator. Everyone knows that he is a master of either ruining the case for money and letting the man go, or on the contrary, putting him behind bars for nothing. So they marinated the boy in the detention center, blackmailing his elderly mother with money. William was shocked. He rubbed his chin and told his friend, "You know what, Martin, I can't leave it at that. You've got to help the boy. He ain't got nobody but his old mother. So he's supposed to rot in jail. For nothing. That's outrageous. It's not the 90s anymore to do this kind of thing. I'll take a tape recorder and I'll meet these thugs who demand money. I'll tell them I found the money and arrange a meeting. I'll get the truth out of them and record it on the tape recorder. Then will you be able to nail them? If there's a recording of the confession." Martin waved his hands. "William, what are you doing? You want to play detective? Who is this guy to you? Yeah, I feel sorry for him, but don't get involved. There's a lot of people involved, and it's not gonna end well. I don't have any employees yet. They're all booked up. You know, it's a dog's job, all day on your feet. Let's wait. I'll coordinate everything, work out a special operation." And then William just waved his hand. "All right, friend, thank you for your help. I'll think about it. That's it, goodbye." And he himself decided firmly, you can't slow down. Time is running out, and the guy is suffering for nothing. We must find out the whole truth and punish the criminals. He promised to help Maria. She was not afraid. She gave birth to her wife at her own risk and saved the children. She could have said she didn't know how. The man did not say anything to anyone about it, neither at home, so as not to upset his wife, nor at his work. So he started to prepare himself. He bought a tape recorder and a small bug in a specialized store. The recordings from the wiretap were sent to a special system. Such equipment was very expensive. Then he learned how to find Marcus, the owner of the mysterious firm Potential, and arranged a meeting with him. At the appointed time, William entered Marcus' office with two powerful bouncers standing beside him, more like huge closets. The owner of the Potential firm lounged imposingly in an armchair and said grudgingly, "Good afternoon. Who are you and what do you owe me?" William responded, "I'm a businessman, William. I want to help Max and get the guy out of jail. I found the amount you're asking for, but first, I want to know what he's in there for. I am sure that Max is not guilty of anything." Marcus laughed, glanced at the brothers, and answered, "What's it to you? You've got an advocate. Well, if you're going to do it, you'll owe not 5 million, but 7. You've got a lot of money anyway. You won't be poor. If your friend is in jail, it means he's guilty. Bring the money the day after tomorrow, same time here. Then Max will be released. I'll make a deal. If not, let him rot in jail." William was taken aback by this insolence. "You're out of your mind. That kind of money. And where's the guarantee that Max will even come out of there? Why should I believe you?" Marcus said angrily, "Anything at all. Just my word. If you don't like the terms, then leave. That's it. The party's over. Goodbye." William recorded the whole thing on a tape recorder and discreetly attached a bug to the back of the table. The recording of the conversation, too, remained in the memory of the recorder. The man got out and got in his car. He was pounded by the anger and impudence of the bastard. It was as if the brat thought he was the master of the city. William tuned up the equipment he had bought, and then he heard the most important thing. "We're just getting lucky. I didn't know what to do with that fool. His mama don't scratch, and they can't hold him for long for nothing. And here's a lucky break. I got a hit. This businessman's income is huge. For him, not 7, but 10 million is just dust. So let him splurge. He'll make a good profit. They got the equipment at a bargain price, and they pinned it all on this jerk, and he'll get just as much on top of it. We'd better find a new sucker for the job quickly, and do the same thing again. It's a very profitable scheme. William rubbed his hands together, smiling. That's it, Marcus, you've talked. Now you're dead. The excited businessman called his friend Kostya. Hello, I've got great news. I managed to expose the scoundrel Marcus. I'll hide the tape recorder with the whole conversation in the safe deposit box. Just in case, I'm telling you, the number 240, and I'll nail the bastard myself. You'll help me, won't you? I don't like this brute. He's too fast. And his muzzleloaders are tough too. Martin jumped up and down and shouted, "Why did you get involved in all this? William, you were stubborn as hell in high school, and you still are. I'm on a business trip. I'll be back in a week. Don't do anything without me. I'm begging you. You'll make a mess of things." "All right, I hear you. I'll talk to you soon. When I get there, we'll organize the capture of the scoundrels. Don't worry." But William was unstoppable. Emboldened by this success, he couldn't help himself, and the very next day he hurried to assure Maria, "I've got it all figured out. Your son is really not guilty of anything. He was just set up. The equipment was resold on the black market, and they pinned the loss on your son. It won't be long before I deal with the gangsters, and Max is free." The old woman smiled. "Thank you, William, but be careful, since these scumbags are not afraid to lie to a man so brazenly. They are capable of anything. Why don't you call the police? I'm afraid for you." Kathy overheard a fragment of their conversation and began to ask her husband not to get involved in anything. "Will, I'm begging you, stay out of it. For the sake of me and the kids, I'm begging you. I'm afraid for you." The husband hugged Kathy and replied, "Nothing to worry about. Everything will be fine. I'm just helping an innocent man go free. That's all. You shouldn't be nervous at all, or you'll lose your milk. Come on, I'll give my sweeties a kiss before I go." William watched his treasures wrinkle and waved laughingly, breathed in the scent of childhood, and kissed all three tenderly and waved to them. Having resolved major issues in his holding company, the businessman called Marcus. "Now you've done it. I've got your confession on tape. You just framed Max. So I'm giving you 3 days. Either you let the guy go for good, or I use the tape. Your time is up." The man hung up the phone and rubbed his hands together. "That's it. The scoundrel has to let Max go. He has no other choice." It turned out to be a lot easier than he had imagined. William had been in a great mood all day. He had no doubt that Marcus would chicken out and go along with his terms. After work, the man stopped at the children's store, bought new rattles for his children, then fresh, beautiful roses for Kathy, and drove home, anticipating what delicious things Maria had prepared for dinner today. I was starving. It was 10 o'clock in the evening, and William still hadn't come home. That had never happened before. Kathy was exhausted, tearing into the phone, but it was off too. She paced back and forth in the bedroom like a tigress, unable to concentrate on anything at all. Then she couldn't stand it, went downstairs, and asked for chauffeur John. "Joan, I'm begging you. Drive around. Go to the office to see my husband. Just in case. Maybe there's something in the car on the road. I cannot. I have a stone in my heart. I feel trouble. Will has never been so late. I can't stop pounding inside. I can't find room for myself." The chauffeur nodded and left. He had learned his master's habits over the years, and he knew that something was probably wrong. William could not have been so delayed without informing his loved ones. 15 minutes later, a disheveled John ran into the house and screamed like a maniac. "Kathy, hurry up and get over here. We're in trouble. I found the owner. Not far from the house. The car's open, and he's got his head bashed in, poor man. There's a lot of blood everywhere. I didn't even know if he was alive or dead. He was shaking all over. I called an ambulance, the police, and I came to you. Hurry up. Let's go over there." The woman screamed violently, and right in her slippers and bathrobe, she rushed outside. There was a terrible commotion. An ambulance arrived. William was alive but unconscious, his skull fractured by something heavy. He had no documents on him, no money. The businessman was taken to the emergency room. The police questioned all the neighbors and family members for a long time. The old woman was sobbing and talking as if she had been wound up. "It's all my fault. It's all my fault. He took it upon himself to help my son get out of jail. You set the kid up, and he got himself hurt. Oh, I can't forgive myself. Find those bastards, please." The cops responded, "Don't worry, we'll figure it out. But it's more like the usual robbers. They hit you on the head, took your money, valuables, and documents. This kind of crime, alas, is not uncommon. Doesn't sound like an assassination attempt. We took your statement. Thank you. We'll look into it." William had a very difficult operation, but unfortunately, he never regained consciousness and fell into a coma. Kathy was black with grief. She had no idea how she would ever live alone with 3 twins without her Will. The woman sobbed for days on end, and only now she realized that Will was literally everything in her life. The whole family was hanging on to him. Without him, everything crumbled like a house of cards. She had no desire to live. Worrying about the little ones was annoying, and she wanted to go to sleep and not wake up. Kathy was very angry with Maria and shouted at her, "It's all your fault. If Will hadn't got involved in your evil business, he'd be alive and well now. You robbed me of my husband and my 3 children of their father. Are you satisfied? Go away at once. I can't see you. What is all this for me? How will I raise my twins alone?" And the woman sobbed, shaking her frail shoulders. Maria understood that Kathy was right, and there was nothing to blame. So she apologized, gathered her small belongings, and went home. The next day, she was in front of the ICU like a bayonet in the morning, begging to be let in to see the patient. "Girl, honey, let me go. I'm a local healer. I heal with my hands and with prayer. William's done me so much good, and I'm the reason he got hurt. Let me at least try to get him back on his feet. I mean, just sitting around won't make it worse, will it?" At first, the nurse was reluctant for a long time. "Please, woman, what are you talking about? What healer? He's between life and death. It's a matter of days. How can you help him? In fact, this is an intensive care unit, not a passageway. They'll kick me out first if I let you in." But Granny wouldn't back down and begged to be let in, at least for a little while. She promised to sit quietly, and if anything happened, she would say that she had sneaked into the room herself. And the nurse took pity and let the old woman in while the doctors couldn't see. Every single day Maria came to William as if she were going to work. She held his hand and prayed frantically for something, crossed herself and wept, and waved her hands over him. She raised her hands to heaven and asked for something up there. As if someone could hear her, the staff laughed at her. "She's crazy. You should have brought a tambourine, like a shaman. There are readings on the instruments, almost like a dead man. How is still alive in general? I do not know. There's no chance. Another day or 2. And that's it. And she's waving her hands. Blessed. What can you take from her?" But after a week, William gradually got better. His vitals leveled off and became stable, and during one of Maria's healing sessions, he suddenly came to his senses. In fact, the whole time, he was as if between heaven and earth. There was no pain or fear. He saw himself from the outside, his body, and Maria, who was conjuring over him. He could clearly hear her voice every day. "Honey, come back to earth. The wife is grieving. The kids are crying. Your family needs you. They're not happy without you. It's too soon for you to go to heaven. It's not your turn yet. Dear Lord, help me. Don't leave me in my time of need. And so it went on day after day. And then today, he finally felt like he was back in his body. He had a terrible headache. All his bones were stiff, and he wanted to move just a little. He made a tremendous effort and tried to open his eyes as if they were taped shut with duct tape. The unusually bright light literally blinded the man, and he blinked frequently, a tear running down his cheek. He tried to say thank you to the old woman because she saved him again, brought him back to earth, but from his throat came out only incomprehensible hoarse sounds. There was a commotion. Doctors came running, gathered a panel. Tired from the strain and therapeutic session, the old lady went out into the hallway and reclined on the couch. Maria felt exhausted, but very satisfied. Everything had worked out. It was not for nothing then. With the last of her strength, she called Kathy. Kathy, it's me, your cook. William came to his senses. I've done all I can. I won't interfere in your life again. I'm sorry again for everything. And I hung up. Then I packed up and took the train home. Kathy immediately rushed to her husband at the hospital with the nurse and the children. She hugged and kissed Will and thanked the doctors. God, thank you. I've already cried all my tears. My dear, what a joy it is that you are awake. The chief physician coughed and replied, in fact, you should thank a strange old woman. She performs some kind of rituals and prayers every day. And so, during one of those seances, your husband woke up. We all laughed at her and thought she was a freak. But she did a miracle, because all your husband's vitals were on the brink, and there was no chance of survival. Kathy felt ashamed and ran out into the hallway, but no one was there. Then she repented to her husband. I'm so sorry to Maria, Will. I'm so ashamed. When they found you with your head bashed in, I went crazy. I said mean things to Maria. I thought it was all her fault. So I yelled at the poor woman, accused her of everything, and threw her out of the house. But you know, I regretted it 100 times. Turns out Maria was irreplaceable. Without her, the house was orphaned. I'm ready to personally apologize to her and say thank you. You know how I have a temper. I do first, then I think. William did not scold his wife, but hugged her tightly and whispered, don't worry. I'll get stronger, and I'll solve everything. We'll get Maria back, and I'll help her son anyway. It's a matter of honor now. Can you imagine how terrible it is to go to jail for nothing, and to realize that there is absolutely nobody to help you, and that's the end? And the man dialed Martin's number. Hey, buddy, how's my case? I did survive, despite the doctor's grim prognosis. The bastards ambushed me as I drove home and hit me on the back of the head with something. They faked a robbery, took my money and documents, and thinking they had killed me, left me. Thanks to my wife, she made a fuss and started looking for me. I'm ready to testify all I can, but the bastards must be punished. Martin was happy for his friend. Willem, I'm very glad you're well, but you only asked me to wait a week. No, you're not. You're just getting into the thick of things. Don't worry about it. I got your record in the box. The bastards are in jail. Max was released today. All charges against him were dropped. And if your testimony is added to all this, no lawyer will help Marcus. He'll go away for a long time, I'll tell you that. William exhaled and told Kathy. Max was released today, so it was not in vain. It's just a matter of getting Maria back into the family. Where are my bunnies? Bring them here. I missed you so much. The nanny brought the babies, and William hugged each one individually and all together. He couldn't hold back the tears. They were all smiling and hooting back. Kathy couldn't stand it and burst into tears too. My darling, my darling, my darling. You know, I've changed my mind during these terrible days, and I realized one thing: how much I love you. I don't want a career or anything, just to have you by my side. I thought I'd go crazy with grief. I took your love for me for granted. It seemed to me that it would always be so, and there was nothing special about it. And when I realized that I could lose you forever, I suddenly realized how much you did for me and the children. How you pampered me, gave me flowers, whispered words of love. You're the one who holds everything together. Thank you for everything. Don't scare me like that anymore. William took his wife by the hand. I promise, no more force majeure. I also love you very much, and our children. For your sake I live in this world. It's only been a little while, but it seems to me they have grown so much. Maria was heating the stove and making cabbage soup when she heard Jack's dog whimper joyfully, and the gate opened. The old woman's heart sank and went to her heels. Jack had only met Max like that. The old woman rushed out onto the porch. She could not believe her eyes. Max was standing on the doorstep, smiling at her and holding out his arms to embrace her. She howled in her voice, "Son, my darling, you're back. Oh, thank God. So you kept your promise to William. He risked his life to help you, a holy man. Come in, my good man. Skinny, just bones." Max hugged his mother and couldn't hold back the tears either. She smelled like she'd smelled when she was a child, of pies and milk. He whispered softly, "You forgive me, Mother, for being such a fool. You set me up like a baby. And thank you. The investigator told me that some businessmen you know stood up for me and got the truth. I was getting desperate. I thought I'd never get out. I love you so much, Mammy. I'm sorry I said it so seldom before." They hugged each other tightly once more. The heart of the elderly mother, exhausted by worry for her son, finally calmed down and began to beat peacefully. After all, for any mother, a child's well-being is the most important thing in life, and it doesn't matter how old the child is, 5 or 20. The old woman was fussing and setting the table. Max greedily ate his mother's delicious cabbage soup and cakes, as if he had not eaten anything tastier in ages. Then he heated in the sauna and took a long, enjoyable steam bath, washing off with mud the terrible memories of the most terrible days of his life. 3 days passed. Max decided to take some time off from all his misfortunes and help his mother with the house and chores. He was sorting out some junk in the barn and was chopping wood when Jack barked hard, just ripping from his chain. There was a knock on the gate. A surprised Max went to open it. On the threshold stood an expensive-dressed man. He smiled openly and said hello. "Good afternoon. My name is William, and you must be Max. I'm here to see you and your mother. May I come in?" Max dropped his axe, wiped his hands, and hustled over to say hello. "Good afternoon. Of course, come in. My mother is home. A woman has brought her granddaughter to her. The little girl has a bad stutter. She's in therapy. She'll be out soon. Come into the kitchen. I'll warm up some tea. Mom's baked some tasty cakes. Try some. They're delicious. So that's who I owe my salvation to. Thank you, William, from the bottom of my heart." I was getting desperate. I even thought of putting my hands on myself. After all, nothing was stolen, not resold, where a lot of expensive equipment disappeared. I still do not understand. It was as if it had evaporated. And all the locks are intact, unopened. The businessman began to explain. "It's very simple. Max, you were set up. The scoundrel Marcus resold the equipment underground, jacked up the price, and blamed the loss on you, because you are the person financially responsible. And he also decided to make a fortune. He demanded money from your mother. Then they would have let you go. In fact, you were illegally detained in the detention center. There is no evidence of your guilt. Only you didn't have a competent lawyer to blow the scoundrels to smithereens. And your mother is a golden person. You take care of her, Max. She helped my wife give birth to triplets at home, and then she brought me back from the dead. She has a great gift from God. She is a real healer. I was so worried about you. I was exhausted. I knew your father well, too. He taught gymnastics at my school. He also helped me to overcome my childhood fears and complexes. So we're not strangers to each other anymore. Maria returned from the room. She guided the patients. She explained what and how to do at home. She was heartily thanked. When she saw William, the old lady was very happy to see him. Good day, my little dove. Happy. Thank you. My goodness, how glad I am. I've been telling myself I made you suffer because of me. How's Kathy? How are the little ones? I miss them all so terribly. I'm glad my little boy came home. They let him go. Thank you. I never would have gotten the truth alone. An innocent man would have rotted away in prison for nothing. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. William, too, began to thank the old woman. Maria, thank you so much for everything. Don't be offended with Kathy. She's already regretted saying nasty things to you 100 times. And after you left, she couldn't help herself. Turns out we're as good as without you. And when she found out that it was you who saved me, she was ashamed of herself. So, you're our dear man. We seem to know each other not so long, but you have become our dear grandmother. I'm not afraid of the word. Without you, the house has become an orphan. And we miss you very much. So here it is. Kathy and I have been thinking, and we decided this. You, Maria, have a real gift. No doubt, we've all seen that more than once. I want to help you open a private office. We'll set it up, and you'll be able to see people in comfort. How would you feel about that? You want to come back to us? We'd be happy to. And about Max, I have an offer. I want to offer him a position in my bank. I promise a decent salary. I've been in business for many years. I have a good reputation. There's no cheating, don't worry. How do you, Max? Look at it. The man rejoiced greatly. I'm all for it. I won't say no. I was just thinking about where to find a normal job, so that everything would be fair. After all you've been through, you can't even trust people anymore. I won't let you down. I'll do my best. You won't regret hiring me. When can I start? William smiled and replied, Well, that's settled. I'll see you Monday at 8 in the personnel department. I'll make the arrangements. You'll be processed, and everything will be shown and told. So, Maria, what have you decided? Do you like my offer? Maria replied, flushed. It's embarrassing. That's a lot of money. Let's give it a try. But I tell you right away, I will not take money from people. It's a big sin. The gift might go to waste. Whoever gives, that's all right. And even if a person is a beggar or a tramp, I will not refuse anyone. For me, all people are one. We all walk under the same God. And there's no guarantee against a fate or a prison. I would like to buy some vials, an accurate scale, a good mortar, herbs to grind, so that I myself could make quality tinctures and ointments. Herbs are sometimes better than the strongest medicines. I know this for a fact. And William, I'll just come and visit you, like a grandmother. Babysit my grandchildren, make dinner. From my heart, from my heart. You don't have to pay me for that. Otherwise, I'll be offended. You said it yourself. We're not strangers now. And tell Kathy I don't resent her at all. She's got a temper. But in fact, she's kind and easygoing. Taste the cakes, my dear. I only baked them early today. The three of them chatted and parted like old acquaintances or relatives for a long time. From that day on, Maria and Max's life changed abruptly. William kept his promise, and in 3 months he helped my grandmother to open a very comfortable private office with its own mini laboratory for making herbal medicines, named very symbolically Warmth of Magic Hands to Everyone. Slowly things began to happen. People were literally telling each other cases of healing with their hands and prayers from Maria. Patients from all over the country began to come to her. The old woman did not refuse anyone. She listened to everyone's problems, gave advice, and helped in any way she could. And on weekends, she enjoyed visiting her grandchildren. They made peace with Kathy long ago, and together they rejoiced over the first teeth and the first steps of the twins. Maria was very similar to William, the same sharp nose and dimples on the cheeks, and Mike and Frank were a copy of Kathy, nimble fidgets and mischievous kids with angelic faces. But now all three of them played and frolic. They were not bored. They only had to make sure that they did not make a mess and wreck the house. The little ones loved Maria, rejoiced over her, crawled into her arms. After all, she told such interesting tales and stories, and baked delicious crispy cookies and cakes for the little ones. The new job was to Max's liking. He was a diligent, thoughtful guy by nature, so checking and auditing reports was exactly the kind of work that suited him 100%. William was very pleased with his work. In just a couple of months of painstaking work, Max identified many deficiencies and major irregularities, and even brought to light some dodgy employees. To avoid driving every day from the village, Max rented a small, comfortable apartment in the city, not far from his work. On the personal front, things began to get better too. As a child, Max was very fond of a girl, Jenna, from the township. They were in the same class. He worshipped her, carried her bag, protected her from bad boys, let her copy off all the lessons. In 11th grade, they went on a date, kissed, had their first intimacy. Jenna also swore her love for him, telling him they would be together for life. The guy had it all planned out. They'd finish university together, then rent a place and get married. But his naive adolescent dreams were not destined to come true. The tragedy of his life happened right at the graduation party. First, Jenna suddenly began making eyes at another classmate and the hilarious Sam, then went with him to dance. The young people even fought. After all, everyone had long been used to the fact that Jenna and Max were a couple. And when the whole class went to the river to watch the sunrise, Jenna suddenly disappeared. Max was worried she might have gone to the bathroom and gotten lost. He had no idea why the other girls were laughing and the boys were squinting at him. Max went looking for his beloved, and he found her. She shamelessly made love to Sam and whispered to him the exact same words of love and swore fidelity. It was a universal disgrace. The humiliated Max did not interfere and clarify the relationship. He was disgusted by such a betrayal. The guy just ran home. That same night, he packed his bags and left for the city to go to university. He went off to school, graduated from university with flying colors, and all that time, he didn't even want to hear about girls. Too much trauma and pain in my soul was left by that tragic first love. Then work and other troubles too. There was no time for a personal life. Finally, when things were more or less settled in life, Max took a great liking to one employee, a cashier, Helen. Outwardly, she was unremarkable. Small, angular, her hair always tied in a neat ponytail at the back of her head. She was what you might call a gray mouse. It was May, and Max liked to have lunch in the square near work. He took a cup of coffee and sandwiches, ate leisurely, fed the crumbs to the pigeons, and basked in the sun. Helen did the same. They met when there were no benches available, so they had to sit on one. One thing led to another, and they got to talking. To Max's surprise, Helen proved to be a very interesting conversationalist. She read and knew a lot, but she was very modest and quiet. And what eyes she had, big, gray, deep, and somehow a little sad. They began to meet more and more often for lunch at the same place for a snack. The guy fell in love with Helen, got used to her, and decided to ask her out. When he asked the girl where she would like to go, to the movies or to a cafe, to his surprise, he heard the following: "Let's just take an evening stroll along the waterfront. It's quiet and cool by the water. I don't like noisy parties and crowds of people. I could hardly get used to a crowd of clients in a bank. At first I got lost, got nervous. Sometimes I couldn't even stand it and went to the toilet to wash. It was so uncomfortable." It was incredible because Max was exactly the same in nature. He smiled and answered, "How similar we are to each other. I too love peace and quiet. I grew up in a small village. I can't get used to the hustle and bustle and the crowds of people in Metropolis. I get tired of it a lot. So I would be glad to support your idea of going for a walk. I'll see you tonight then. I'll pick you up at 7. Max felt so good and comfortable around Helen, as if he had known her for 100 years. They had a wonderful time, admiring the swans in the pond, the guy rocking his bride on an old swing in the park. Then they ate delicious pistachio ice cream, kissed and admired the stars. Together they laughed and tried to find the big bear's bucket. Helen was reverently and tenderly snuggled up to him, and it was as if she dissolved completely in that embrace. An affair spiraled between the young men. Many of the man's employees who found out about it did not understand the guy. Why do you need this simple country girl who is also an orphan? And there's nothing special about her appearance. She doesn't talk much. She keeps quiet, thinking about her own things. Look at the boss's secretary, Molly. That's blood and milk. Her breasts are full. Her face is doll-like. She's beautiful. She's eating you up with her eyes. And you. But Max was adamant. No thanks. I used to have such a pretty girl. All the men were turning their heads. I don't want that kind of happiness. And I love Helen. She's the best for me. You don't understand anything. I ask you to respect my choice and not to speak ill of my bride. A couple of months later, the couple did get married. William, hearing that Max was getting married, wanted to help him and throw a feast for the whole world. It was a once-in-a-lifetime celebration, after all. But the guy flatly refused. Thanks for the offer, William, but I'll decline. Helen and I are both modest. We don't like to make a fuss or show off. So we'll just sign, and that's it. But you and Kathy and the kids are welcome to visit. We'll invite my mother. A couple of Helen's friends. We'll sit quietly as a family. And I don't want to borrow money. I want to earn my own money, be a breadwinner and provider, and go out at someone else's expense. It's not the point. William shook the guy's hand. Good for you for thinking that way. I respect that. I've done everything on my own, and you can do it too. Let's do the opposite then. In our courtyard, in the gazebo, we'll celebrate your marriage. We'll barbecue with you. There's enough room for everyone. And the kids are more comfortable at home. How do you feel about it? We'll meet your sweetheart too. I hope we'll be family friends. Max liked the idea, so we agreed. Helen got very excited when she found out that the wedding would be celebrated in their principal's mansion. She almost cried. Max, I'm scared. I'm already shaking. What if your mother or William's family don't like me? Wouldn't it be better at home, in our apartment? The guy gently embraced his bride. Well, first of all, we can't all fit in here, and there's plenty of room. Second of all, they have 3 twins. They're a little wild, and they've got plenty of room to run around in the yard. They get bored here. And thirdly, don't worry. William and his wife are very easygoing people. You can never tell they're big businessmen. You're sure going to love it there. And my mom is a healer. She can see right through people. So you certainly have nothing to be afraid of. Helen's fears were misguided. The celebration went splendidly. When they arrived from the registry office, already husband and wife, she finally changed her clothes, took off that stuffy dress with the corset, and put on shorts and a t-shirt. Everyone was dressed casually too. The barbecue was already grilling, and the guests had gathered. She quickly found common ground with Kathy and enjoyed helping her wash the twins, who were screeching around the yard, firing water pistols at each other. Maria came over. She hugged Helen warmly, as if she had known her 100 years, and said, "Well, hello, my good man. I'm glad, Helen, that Max chose you. I will love you like a daughter, I promise." Helen felt sorry for the warm words from her mother-in-law. I'm very glad too. I was so afraid to come here. I was shaking. I thought you or William's wife might not like me. But I was worried for nothing. It's so simple, heartfelt, and homey. And then they all sat together as one big friendly family at the huge oak table in the gazebo, ate aromatic shashlik. drank wine, and congratulated Max and Helen on their marriage. All believed that sorrows and troubles now for sure are behind, and ahead only the good. Let it will be so.